Hey, this is Christina Wallace, and this video shows you exactly how to work with cold porcelain as compared to gum paste. So for those of you who ever considered switching or perhaps adding it to your skill set, this is a good video to watch. Okay, so for this demo, I'm planning to use my own self-made cold porcelain. I prefer the texture, but it's a little bit harder than Modena, so it's easy to roll. And just to demonstrate, this green one is a little bit more Modena-like, so softer, and this pink one is harder, the one I prefer. Sorry, I don't have any Modena handy. So the main difference with cold porcelain, apart from edibles, non-breakables and so forth, is that it's less rubbery than gum paste, and so it's more delicate to it's kind of stickier, a lot stickier, so it's more delicate to roll and deal with. I wouldn't say it's terribly hard or much harder than gum paste, but it certainly takes getting used to it. It has its own pluses and minuses as compared to gum paste. So now on my way to making a rose, I am trying to do a 5-petal, and you see I thin it out in stages using cornflour in between, trying not to overuse it. And I'm finding here that the 5-petal are just proving to be too much of a high maintenance in all the stages. So I'm just reversing back to doing single petals because they seem to be all around quicker to make. Now we come to veining individual petals, and that's another beautiful thing about cold porcelain, in my opinion. It's amazingly responsive to veiners, much more so than gum paste. And even if you use platinum and not Nicholas Lodge's gum paste, it still is much more responsive, in my opinion. I'm not aiming for a rose of any particular look, so I am drying these petals any each way. However, I'm going to show you something interesting I'm going to do with them later on, so stick around for that. Okay, so now I am having a go at making a rose with cold porcelain. I have some PVA glue, a metal stick to apply it, and all my petals readily veined and ready to go. So someone see the petals sit on nicely and firmly. You can't take them off easily. In fact, the glue sets very quickly, so make sure you place it where you want it. And I like the way cold porcelain seems to so naturally and lightly sit around the middle. I never notice it to be as effortlessly sat around the middle and in gum paste, for example, and you can kind of shape it to shape, for example, and you can make it contemporary by scrunching it a little bit like this, and it works so much better on cold porcelain as compared to gum paste, as you could just see there a second ago. And with more or less the same amount of petals, you get a nicer and more voluminous result with a cold porcelain as well. Okay, so here we're going excuse me, through the same motions with gum paste. As you could see, rolling and thinning is a no-brainer, and neither is 5-petal. So yeah, it works quite nicely, but I am finding that, especially going for a contemporary look, like scrunching petals or what have you, or attaching single non-wide petals, it's just a lot stiffer and it wraps around a lot less easily. So in a way, you can get a really nice look with it, but obviously the thinner your petals are, the more fragile your rose is as well, so you have to consider that. And so yeah, all in all, I think with the same effort, you could get a lot further in terms of look of your flowers with cold porcelain. Obviously, cold porcelain is not edible, although no one actually eats these flowers. It's it's a limitation. So I'm just talking in terms of their flower making properties, regardless of edibility or non-edibility. Okay, so when you need to wire your petals, you thin it in stages like you did for non-wired petals. And then what you do, you leave the top a little bit thicker, so you have a space to insert the wire, just like this. And then you the wire that you use would be the same as for gum paste, and because this cold porcelain is a bit softer, it is actually harder to wire it. It's a bit of a bummer. I'm still struggling with it, but I'm sticking with the traditional way of inserting the wire. So you use a bit of water instead of a glue, which is actually a bonus, and then you try to thread it in. And if you use a bendy veiner like here, it might be an idea to bend the wire a little bit, or at least it seemed to work for me. And yet it does often stick out just like this. So I pinch it and then I revein it if necessary. And hopefully that would come with experience to kind of keeping it neater than I do now. And here we go again. You have the gum paste, and with gum paste, the whole wiring thing seemed to be a doddle compared to cold porcelain, in all honesty. But here you have the same thing. Veining is a lot better with cold porcelain. I don't know if my camera actually is picking it out. Hi again, sorry to interrupt, but this is really important. I need to ask you a question. Whenever I am planning some kind of a sugar craft tutorial, I always wonder whether I should run it in cold porcelain instead, so you could use it both ways, or at least alternate cold porcelain with sugar, cold porcelain with a gum paste sometimes. But then I think maybe no one would need it. So please, for those of you who are interested in tutorials in cold porcelain, please give me a shout. Leave a comment below so that I know. Thank you very much. And this is it. This is your cold porcelain and everybody's favorite, the rose. I use the same routine to put the flower together as I do with gum paste. And when it comes to shaping, it pretty much works in the same way as gum paste, if not better, although it doesn't stretch as well, I found, for obvious, tie-lows reasons. You can do the frilling and you could shape the daisy shapes as well. You can thin them, you can shape them and do the usual thing. With everything sharp, including veiners, press less hard or you might tear the cold porcelain. Whether you use Modena or make cold porcelain yourself, you would need to add white paint to it, or else it's going to be translucent, or if not enough paint, semi-translucent. So you have to try it out and watch out for that. These are my petals with my own DIY cold porcelain, less flexible, and these are the old petals I found, spare petals I found made with Modena, and Modena being more firm, less firm in production, produces softer dried petals as well. So that's something to kind of bear in mind. And this finally, one of the interesting things you could do with cold porcelain, which you couldn't quite as well do with gum paste. So as you could see, this is quite a delicate little branch, would be really hard to wire, excuse my hair there. And here you just kind of stick the wire over the top because of the soft nature of cold porcelain. Not a very good veiner, just my own one, but anyway, I should demonstrate. So it's a very sloppy work of mine, could do with huge improvement. However, it kind of gives you an idea of what you could do with cold porcelain, really. And with this, I think I've now covered all the very basic points of a huge topic. If you know anyone who you think would benefit from this video, do please share, please subscribe, and I will see you again next Thursday.